Thank you for joining me for another episode of the Healthy AF podcast. With me today is Jen Winkler, who Jen is a functional health and hormone coach, helping women overcome PCOS, PMS, insulin resistance, and blood sugar struggles through nutrition, movement, and lifestyle balance. Once healed through a ketogenic approach, Jen now embraces a more flexible whole food lifestyle that includes fruits and vegetables, while continuing to explore how different ways of eating support women's hormones and long-term health. Jen, thank you for joining me. I really appreciate you joining me here. It's been a hot topic of conversation lately, and I appreciate your support on social media through it and conversation. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on. This will be a fun discussion.
Yeah, so you've been through, just to give people a preface where we started talking, there's been some people in the keto, carnivore, low-carb community who have been struggling with symptoms of insulin resistance, basically elevated blood sugar, elevated A1C, some have low thyroid or weight gain, different symptoms around that would indicate there's something wrong. And through that, you and I started talking and discovered that you had similar symptoms at one point. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So I actually started ketogenic back in 2018, primarily for my epilepsy. So for me, this is even a bigger deal than just trying to lose weight loss and balance blood sugar. Like, I was on massively high amounts of anti-epileptic medication. So that was my main reason to start it. And it did do its job. Like, I drastically reduced the medication, and little did I know that I was going to also reverse my PCOS, my insulin resistance, and all that stuff. I held really close to ketogenic until it wasn't working well anymore, but that's when all the keto treats and things were coming out as well, the almond flour products and all that. So that's when I said, okay, maybe I need to do carnivore. I mean, the main thing about ketogenic for epilepsy is the ketones. And as long as I keep the fat high, I'll be fine, right? So I jumped into the carnivore space, and that it just continued. Like, a lot of my skin issues that came up on keto got better. Like, a lot of the typical things people will say on carnivore did improve for myself. And it became simple and easy. Just eat meat, eggs, fish. It was like, okay, that's simple. However, once I lost a good amount of weight, it started creeping back up. And then my thyroid, what has always been on the cusp of the range, like on the lower end. So conventionally it's within range, but functionally it was definitely not. And when I went carnivore, it got a lot worse, and I was losing a lot more hair. And then I started gaining the weight more. So mine went more hormonally the opposite direction. I did testing with different people, and it just was like, they couldn't figure out what it was. So that's when I just started exploring a little bit more.
Mm-hmm. No, when you said it started coming back up, your weight started coming back up, or blood sugar levels, or what was coming back up?
Yeah,
okay.
Blood sugar levels. So my A1C was always around 4.8, 4.9. But then on carnivore, it was going up to 5.2, 5.3. My fasting blood sugar was always in the hundreds. I started taking berberine because people would say, oh, take berberine, right? And that did bring it down, but it didn't make sense that I would have to supplement. Like, I should be fine with just food, right? Supplement is supposed to be temporary. Yeah. So it just didn't make sense to me. I was like, I'll do it for a bit, but
right.
Yeah.
Well, and there's some supplements, like if we're not getting enough magnesium, get some magnesium, right. But why would you have to supplement something to bring your blood sugar down when the purpose of the diet is to bring your blood sugar down? It's like, why is the diet working is the question here, like it's supposed to. And okay, well, that makes sense. And so I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I wanted to kind of get, and as far as one other question I had before I lose it is the thyroid. You said it was in conventional levels, but not functional levels. Could you elaborate on that?
Yes. So I have been trained in functional blood chemistry. So now I am able to just evaluate my own labs to a degree. But my TSH was always good. My T4 was always good. My free T3 was always the one that was low. So prior to carnivore, it was 2.0. Functionally, we like to see it 3.0 to 5.
Yeah.
And even before keto, I found some lab work from a while ago. Even before keto, it was 2.0. So I'm not going to blame keto that it went down. But when I went carnivore, it went down to 1.8. And a
Ooh.
lot of people will say, yeah. And I was getting the symptoms, right? I was getting the hair loss. I was getting the weight gain. I can't even think of the others because it's been a number of years, but I could tell that this is like a oh, my reverse T3
Mhm.
was also always elevated, indicating the stress aspect of everything, of
Correct.
suppressing the thyroid hormone. So I ended up in 2023, I worked with a coach who was in the keto space, but also incorporates carbohydrates. And I was terrified. I had that fear that a lot of people get. I'm going to gain weight. I'm going to get fat, but also I'm doing this for therapeutic purposes, for epilepsy. What if I get a seizure? Like, I didn't have great guidance from my medical team. My neurologist was supportive of it, but she didn't know what else to say, what to do. So this coach helped me overcome that fear of carbohydrates. Granted, I did gain weight with it. I won't lie. I gained a good 10 pounds doing it his way. So that's where I got scared and I went back to under
Mm.
20 grams of carbs, strict keto, and then the thyroid. And the thyroid was improving when I was working with him. It went up to 2.6, I believe, the free T3. But then when I went back keto, I went back down again. I
Right.
really credit him to getting that fear gone within myself, to being like, okay, let's explore a little. And then last year in 2024 is when I slowly started bringing up the carbs and slowly bringing the fat down. I'm not extremely low fat. I still have enough fat for hormones, brain health, and all that, but it's not a ketogenic macro approach for myself. So I've done that and I feel good. I just had lab work done and I'm going to make a video on it soon. But my free T3 is the highest it's ever been.
That's
And I'm
amazing.
not losing as much hair. Like everything is going great. So
Great. Great. That's awesome. That's awesome. So I'm sure that's really changed the way you work with some of your clients as well.
it has, yeah. I still use a ketogenic approach and maybe carnivore for people who I feel would benefit from it. But I
Mm.
like to make sure that this isn't something you're going to have to do forever. Once you heal enough, once you get that, the insulin that's super high, let's just get that down a little bit or to as best as we can, and then find the carbohydrates that work for you. So like for myself, I don't do well with rice. I get anxiety. Something about rice and certain grains will spark anxiety in myself and panic attacks. So my primary source of carbohydrates is I do fine with dairy. I do fine with fruits. I do really well with fruits actually. And then your basic veg, right? Like your broccoli, cauliflower, cruciferous and all that. So I like to help my clients figure out which ones work for them,
Mhm.
because I don't want to pile carbohydrates in just this big pocket of brownies, cookie. Like they're very different. And I think what I'm hearing people say is if I have broccoli, I'm going to start craving the brownies and the cookies. And I'm like, wait, that's totally different. And if you look at the macronutrients of a lot of the junk food, there's a lot of fat in there too. So I don't
A
get
tremendous
why.
amount of fat. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, and it's bad. It's a bad fat. It's a bad
bad
source of
fat.
fat.
It's
They're not putting
inflammatory.
real butter in those cookies like your grandma did, you know?
Exactly. Right, right. Yeah. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. I'm still a little bit exploring certain foods. I'm doing a lot of gut work for myself. I did a gut test and it was horrific. So I'm rebuilding my gut lining and all that kind of stuff currently as well. So
Mm.
there's quite an overhaul. And gut testing is a big thing I do with my clients now. I'm always testing their guts because I'm almost always finding something wrong there.
And do you think it's possible that the gut issues could be related to the way you digest certain carbohydrates? In other words, the negative impact or the negative side effects you get from certain carbohydrates might be related to the gut itself and your biome, population.
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, it all depends on what type of lifestyle a person's coming from. If it's a
Mhm.
standard American diet, then of course all the inflammatory products they were eating is going to disrupt the gut microbiome, is going to disrupt your bile acids, your digestive enzyme, all that stuff. There's going to be inflammation. If you've been on antibiotics, which is pretty much 99% of the population, that's going to impact that as well.
Mhm.
Your bifidobacterium, your, digestive capacity, all those kind of things are going to be impacted.
Right.
That being said, if someone's coming from a zero carb, zero fiber lifestyle, and I'm not going to say everybody because everybody's different, but the people that come to me, I find they have low butyrate very often. They
Mm.
have low, so the short chain fatty acids, their
Mhm.
digestive capacity is off, and then mucus lining inflammation. That's a big one too. So whether the mucus lining is decreasing due to the lack of the fiber, and then that can cause other issues,
Right.
or yeah. So there's a whole host of different things, but I'm finding more and more gut health being to be a big root cause of a lot of things.
Mhm. And that is one thing that gets argued a lot, I think, within the low carb community is a lack of need for fiber because of, I think, partially because of the emphasis on fiber from this, from standard nutrition and from standard, our health authorities that have been in place. They don't really understand the need for fiber. They just say, eat more fiber, right? And it reduces cancer or it cleans against, it's not really what fiber does, but
Right.
it sounds like you just nailed it, where it improves the gut line, the mucus layer of the gut lining, as well as feeds those certain, like butyrate or certain, or I'm sure I said that
You said it right.
improperly. Okay. Those little short chain fatty acids that are feeding the microbiota in the
Mhm.
gut. I mean, the
And it
fibers are
pulls
related
like,
to feeding those. Yeah.
yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and not only that, but there are different types of fiber, right? There's soluble fiber, insoluble fiber, and
Correct.
some people can tolerate some better than others. And then, but people just think automatically like Brussels sprouts and cabbage. Let me throw that in. And if you haven't been doing that for a while, as you showed with your facial reaction, that is not going to work out well for you, right? And needing to reintroduce slowly and strategically, working with someone that knows what they're doing to help you figure out which foods should I bring back in. That's a big deal. So, but then there's the polyphenols, there's the antioxidants. Like it's not
Right.
just that it's just a carb. I was saying this on Instagram not too long ago, but if we reduce food to merely their macronutrients, we are doing a
Oh,
great disservice to ourselves. It's not just about bringing carbs in, because that's what I hear people, well, just bring in the dairy then. Dairy has carbs. And I'm like, but it's more than that. It's more than just I need carbs. It's the whole micronutrient profile of the vegetable, the fruit, etc.
it's the food matrix. Otherwise, we could just like mix up a powder that has a macronutrient ratio that you want, blend it up, and just have that, and you're good to go. All you need, if all you need is macros, we can freeze dry that into a powder. You just mix with water and stir, and drink it
Yeah.
down, and or a few drops of fat, whatever it is you want to do. But it's like it's really, there's the food matrix that we're talking about here. That and to like you said, you're doing food a disservice to minimize it to macros. And I think we're underestimating. Let me rephrase this. To start blaming specific macros for something as large as the impact it's having of metabolic disease, to just blame that on macros, on a range of macros, when we have had 10,000 years of history of people from all over the world, different geographic regions with different food available, eating a mix of macronutrients without evidence of any metabolic disease, certainly nothing like what we've had since the 20th century here in this country and what we've spread to the rest of the world. There's no history of it. And so
Right.
how can we suddenly these macronutrients are now causing disease simply because they fit under the framework of a particular macronutrient? That's not logical. It's not historically accurate. And it's certainly not science.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And you look at the history of things, over the past, gosh, I've been saying 50 years, and now I feel like I need to,
Back,
we're past 2020 now, so it's longer than that. But the past like
yeah,
70 years ish, when the once processed foods came into the picture and all the ingredient swaps it's adding in, all the seed oils. I know you talk a lot about that. The seed
yeah,
oils, inflammatory ingredients,
yeah,
and getting that out. But then not just eliminating it from the diet, but also working on healing to a
correct.
cellular level,
Yeah,
and getting rid of those toxins is the biggest aspect. Because my blood work, I really was expecting it to be worse. Besides the thyroid, the metabolic markers,
mm,
my A1C improved down to, I always mix up the two because they're so close, but insulin and A1C, one of them was 4.9 and the other was 4.8.
oh wow,
Fine. And
okay,
I am eating upwards to 100 to 200 grams of carbs a day. Some days are a little bit less. Depending where I am in my cycle, I'm finding that sweet spot. Yeah, and it's mostly fruit. My liver enzymes are fantastic. So it's not showing like fructose making fatty liver or anything like
Hmm.
that.
Hmm.
Now, do I know what it's going to be in the long term? I don't. I'm not going to say everybody needs to do this. I'm kind of running my own experiment, seeing what happens, seeing how I feel. But yeah, we'll see. Like, I'm going to keep documenting and seeing where things go with this.
That's great. That's great. And your clients have responded well to it as well.
So I will be honest, my clients that I have currently are primarily low carb ketogenic. They're not quite at the place to add that much yet. And
I
maybe they
understand.
are. And I just don't have, I'm not going to bring my clients into an experiment that I'm still working on myself.
You want the data. You want more data.
The data,
Okay.
I want to understand exactly. But the one, I have had clients in the past before when I was still strict ketogenic, where I was like, well, you seem to be doing great on low carb. Let's just clean up the food you're eating and find better sources, right? I've had clients that were doing 100, 200, but they do CrossFit and they do extreme exercise. So I knew logically in my brain that they're going to be burning that glucose and it's going to be fueling the muscle growth and all that stuff. And it did. We just had to clean stuff up with them. So I have coached people in that realm, but those people were not insulin resistant. So that's where I am still in my discovery phase of things that I'm learning from people in the space of
Mhm.
what like certain fats, certain things like that, how that can drive physiological insulin resistance. The low carb keto being too long can drive it more. So I'm still trying to wrap my head around it all, to be completely honest.
Sure. That's a good place to be. I've been there. I started running into problems with the low carb and intermittent fasting I was doing about 3 years ago. And that's when I knew I needed to start making a change because it was just, I hit the wall. And when
Yeah.
I started looking for answers and digging in and let off the intermittent fasting about 2.5 years ago, added the carbs in about 2 years ago and looking at blood work and digging deeper. And that's when, and it's a process because you start it's very wisely start with yourself, N of one, start looking for research that helps you understand what's going on, and then slowly roll it out to other people to see how they respond depending on their situation. And that's just a responsible coach, right? I
Yeah.
think that's a responsible way of doing it. And I think we're all on a journey of when you stay curious, what you're not doing is staying stuck in the way you were originally thinking or what the people around you were telling you. And you're looking for more answers and you're looking for the way forward. And so that curiosity, I think, is what a coach needs to have to really serve their clients and have integrity to make the health outcome more important than the strategy. And I think that's where we've gotten lost, and many coaches get lost, and many of these people we see on Instagram and so forth get lost, is the strategy becomes more important than the outcome for the people we're supposed to be helping. And that's that when your ideology and your strategy, you've seen it, people get triggered when you threaten their diet ideology. And so they have a really interesting relationship with their food, like it's become part of their identity. Would that be categorized as some sort of maybe eating disorder? If you have that kind of relationship with your particular strategy, do you think that would fall under that framework?
That's really interesting way to look at it. As we were talking, just in my head, I'm like, yeah, I'm picturing certain ones
Mhm.
that I've seen recently, especially with so many carnivores finding health within adding certain fruits and vegetables and stuff. They're feeling
Mhm.
better. I don't know if I'd call it disordered eating, but yeah, I would probably say there's definitely something wrong there. It's difficult with social media now when, like you said, your diet, your lifestyle becomes not just your identity, but your business and your income. And it's like,
Correct.
what if this other camp is right? And some people need carbohydrates. How can I actually change my business model to adapt to that? I can't because this is the ideology that I stand on. So I think it's more in that aspect. And it's kind of like, okay, these affiliates I've partnered with, all these things. But then there's also a real fear. I mean, I experienced it myself leaving, and I don't know if you did. It's like, like I said, if I add these carbs in, what's going to happen? Am I going to gain 30 pounds? Because that's what's instilled in us in that space. And
Right.
and then there's also like, okay, people can't afford coaches sometimes or people to guide them. So then they're doing it on their own, but they're not doing it correctly. And they're adding like, they're not lowering their fat. They're not finding that that balance, that energy balance. So there's just so many
Correct.
components.
Yeah. There's a lot of people who are not, they're adding them in without lowering the fat.
Right,
And
right.
yeah, but I'm seeing this hate from people who who are not professionally involved with
Yeah.
coaching, and they're just, this is their thing. They have almost no posts. Some of them have 1 or 0 posts on social media, but they like to come in and stir the pot, accusing me of hate. Meanwhile, there's all these other comments on the thread of people who are like, me too. I had that problem too. Hey, this helped me, or asking real open-minded questions, which I'm very, very happy to answer when someone comes with curiosity and looking for help. But they're completely ignoring this thread of people saying, I have the same problem. And suddenly because I've kind of posed this question, or I say, hey, this is what I found. I'm enemy number one. And where I'm concerned is when we have all of these people saying, hey, I'm struggling with this. And they're telling me in DMs, they've been scared to say something. They've been scared to speak up because of how they would get attacked and it's like almost like what we used to characterize as from like a vegan community, where they get attacked when they start eating meat, say, hey, I'm starting to eat meat and I'm feeling better. And it's just like, pounce on them, cancel them, all the things. And we're seeing the same thing happen in this community, where these people are scared to say anything. But like Lisa Wiedemann, carnivore doctor, right? She puts out her one video she put out just 2 weeks ago about what she encountered, her blood sugar, her weight gain. She added carbs in, started feeling better, blood sugar coming down. She had over 1,100 people DM her after that video saying, me too, saying, I need help with this. Hey, how do you do this? What did you, I've had the same problem. I don't know what to do. From one video, 1,100 people. There's so many more out there, and who aren't saying anything. They don't know where to turn. They don't know what to do. And that's irresponsible. It's irresponsible to not make room for it. And I've seen them. I don't know if you've seen them, but on the Facebook threads, right? I once upon a time in these carnivore groups or animal-based groups, and someone says something about it, and it's like pounce, and there's no room for a new thought or curiosity, or just, hey, I was dealing with this helped me. Completely owning their change, and yet it's, an attack.
Oh, I've been seeing that so much as well. In fact, the other day I commented on a reel, a prominent person in the space who was suggesting that fruit causes more insulin resistance. And so I commented on there, I said, interesting, because when I added fruit and veg after being long-term keto carnivore, my insulin sensitivity improved. And same thing, people, me too, yes. But then there's always that one, like you said, that has no posts, like no profile picture, whatever it is. And they comment it and say, no, that's not the case. Fruit does cause it, And then I like to engage in these if it's civil, if they can keep it civil. And this person kind of did. Yeah. But I said, or someone else commented for me, that's what it was. I didn't get there in time. And they said, being in ketosis long-term is a stressor, can raise cortisol, gluconeogenesis, the whole thing that we know of. And I chimed in that aspect as well. Like, well, our body does need glucose. Everybody can agree with that. Even the carnivore space agrees. Our body needs glucose. However, how much is where I think is the debate. And they believe gluconeogenesis will give you the glucose you need. However, that is a stressful process. And if you're somebody like myself who already has had so much stress and cortisol was already disrupted before ketogenic and has PTSD from childhood events, the long-term ketosis can be a problem and making that even worse. So I think that's why this is my hypothesis, no science, but that's maybe why some people do okay with carnivore a little bit longer, but with myself, it was not.
We're seeing people who are like have posted blood work, who are leaders in this community, post blood work, but then not acknowledge or address what's seen with elevated blood sugar, elevated A1C, lowered testosterone sometimes.
Oh yeah, that happened too. I forgot about that one. My testosterone tanked.
Yeah, it will, because as cortisol goes up, which cortisol is one of the stress hormones, that also elicits a release of aromatase.
Mm.
Or aromatase obviously is aromatizing testosterone into estrogen. We always blamed it on the fat, but it's the cortisol. And we see this with type 2 diabetics, people with fatty liver disease. They have elevated cortisol and elevated glucagon as well. So they have elevated gluconeogenesis and the elevated fat oxidation, lipolysis, that comes from the cortisol and the adrenaline. It's very parallel. And then that elevated stress hormone creates aromatase, which then leads to the lower testosterone. Thyroid, similar. You have a stressful environment, which you're essentially making calories in a catabolic state from breaking down tissue, whether it's fat or protein to create glucose, or fat to put fatty acids in the bloodstream. That's a stressful state. It's meant to be short-term to get us through an emergency, a short-term stressful event. You have trauma. You have an emotional, like your mom's in the hospital, right? And you're dealing with it. You're not eating. You're not hungry. Oh, here's your food, or these kind of things. But to extend it long term, as you adapt to that, that's where I'm saying the adaptation to that is where we run into the problem. And the adaptations are the lower thyroid, the lower testosterone, all these where this becomes normalized, and then those hormones start going up. And so but we're seeing people they're my friends, but they're leaders in the community, and they're not addressing their own basic insulin resistant symptoms. That's not okay. That's not acceptable. You can't keep leading people in this direction. You need to address these. You need to let people know what's going on.
Yeah, I agree. And that's where I wonder where, especially the leaders in the space, like you're saying, they have their brand, and it's like, how far will they let their health suffer to hold on to that brand? I don't know. I'm not saying that's definitely the case with everybody, but you just can't help and wonder. When you were mentioning the hormones, that reminded me, my estrogen slowly continued to rise as well when it was very meat heavy. And I still prioritize my protein. I still get a good amount of it. It's just I'm not throwing pads of butter and, bulletproof coffees and all that stuff. You know what I mean? So I'm still getting that stuff. But my estrogen was rising so much that eventually it got very scary high. I'm talking, it got into the 800s, my estrogen. Yeah. And then I don't remember. Yeah. So that was this year, actually. That's what prompted me to really bring down the protein, because I was getting histamine reactions as well all the time, sinus issues, to the point that I could barely get out of bed. I was not working out much this year in the gym because I just felt so awful. And it wasn't until I brought down the meat and the fat, because my gut test revealed that I had a lot of ammonia and stuff like that fermenting in my gut. So when I brought it drastically down and really went heavy on the fruits, all of it got better. Like all the histamine, my estrogen. I did have to do intramuscular progesterone to really bring the estrogen down fast. So I did that for just 2 or 3 days, under supervision of a doctor, obviously, that knows.
Yeah.
But now my estrogen has been fantastic, and my progesterone.
That's awesome.
I haven't measured testosterone yet. That'll be in November. But yeah, they've all gotten back to balance, and the histamine stuff is getting better, a lot better. It's just one of those, like, the people in the comments, they want carnivore to work so well for everybody. And when you bring forward your evidence of your N=1 and says, I feel better with these foods, and I'm not saying meat is bad for you. I'm not saying get rid of your eggs. Like, still eat that stuff. But for me, this is what works. Well, then they're like, well, carbs are just a Band-Aid. You're not fixing the root cause. Like, that's another one I find. Have you seen that one?
Yeah. They're saying you're not doing it right. I'm like, it's not that hard. Yeah. Reducing carbs is reducing. Like, there's a huge difference between just meat or meat with some asparagus and butter on it. Like, oh my gosh, the expanse of nutritional. I mean, what? Seriously, like, oh, you're not doing keto right. You're not doing carnivore right. You didn't do it right. We're talking about people who have been doing carnivore for 5, 10, like Lisa Wiedemann, 16 years.
Yeah, she didn't
do it right. I mean, Brad Kearns, who wrote The Keto Diet Reset,
Yeah.
2017, New York Times bestseller, had, waking up to blood glucose of 130.
Wow, I didn't realize it got that bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
And I've had people say, if these guys come on and say, well, if it's sustained from gluconeogenesis, it's okay because it's coming from your liver. Where it's dangerous for you, talking to me, is because when I eat, the blood sugar, because the glucose I consume, the blood sugar goes up to 140 or 130 and then comes back down. That's more dangerous somehow because of the spike, even though within an hour it's back below 90. And I have a lot less exposure to glucose than somebody who's walking around at 110, 120 all day long.
right.
I'm sorry. That doesn't make sense.
No. No.
That doesn't make sense. So it's like somehow because it comes from your liver, the glucose is okay to be elevated. I mean, it's that kind of like nonsensical justification that I know that the leaders of the community will say, but yet we hear justification like that when we hear people saying, oh, well, their red blood cells live longer. And so because they're carnivore, so that's okay that they have elevated A1C to 6.1, 6.2.
Their fasting glucose is still high.
Their fasting glucose is high. That's what it is. It's like if you have an incongruence with a high A1C and a low fasting glucose, then you might be able to draw that conclusion of, oh, maybe it lasts, or you're an athlete who's training 5 or 6 hours a day and your blood sugar bounces up a lot because of the intensity of your training, but your blood sugar, your fasting blood sugar is still low. You have an incongruence, then you might be able to make that argument. But when they're both high, it's pretty much clear that it's your high blood glucose causing the high A1C, and that's not good.
Right. No, exactly. And then there's even obviously the iron aspect of it all too. That was another one. When I was carnivore, I had massive iron overload. My iron was up to 172. And ferritin, like the whole iron panel was just showing massive iron overload. So when I brought that, again, the animal foods are bringing it down a little bit, then and bringing down the fats and optimizing my digestion. I haven't gotten a full iron panel yet since then, but I had ferritin and just iron, and they were back to normal within range. So
That's
yeah,
awesome.
there's just so many different things that can pop up. But the iron can affect the A1C as well. The iron overload
can affect the A1C.
Yeah, the heme, exactly.
Yeah. And I still think it's still a problem. You can name all the reasons why it's like that. It's still a problem. It's not, if your diet is causing that, there needs to be some adjustments. I can say when I added carbs, I didn't like my blood sugar being in the 90s. I'm like, that's not okay. It's always in the 90s. Why is it there? When I added the carbs by a lot, like I went up to 250, 300 for several months. My next blood group, 79, from consistently being in the 90s to 79. And my fasting insulin's always right around 2.93. This last time after I had another carb hike, took it up. I did 4 months. I've done almost 5 months now in the 350 to 400 range. A1C dropped to 5.3, fasting insulin's at 2.4, and the glucose was still 81. And I feel amazing. I'm sleeping better. Thyroid's very healthy. And my doc said he's never seen my liver this quiet. And it's mostly coming from fruit juice with some rice and sweet potatoes in there. It's mostly fruit-based.
Yeah.
And it's, he's never seen my liver so quiet. My liver is quiet because it doesn't have to make glucose from gluconeogenesis as much as it used to. It's like, that'll jump your liver numbers up, is all that gluconeogenesis.
Yeah.
And so it's been tremendous, and lowering the fat. So I did it. My wife did it with me. Over about a 7-week period, I lost 6 pounds of fat, took the bioimpedance, and had a DEXA in the middle just to make sure I was kind of on track. That was lining up. My wife lost 10 pounds she hadn't seen off of her in at least a decade. It's never been easier to keep it off. Like, she'll go out of town, we'll go out of town, eat what we need to eat, healthy, but not really sticking to the diet. Come back, she's either lost weight or if she put on a pound, it drops back. It's been the easiest to maintain this level of body fat for her. Daughter did the same thing. And she lost weight. She'd been stuck on her for a while from trying to do low carb. My wife trying to do low carb, walking around 10 pounds. Okay. We're in our 50s. So it's,
I'll do her. Yeah.
and so 50s, it's like, this is not like, it's the diet. It's the diet. The diet was the main variable that changed. And it was the only variable that changed. And it made all the difference of going higher carb, low fat. And it's, I'm seeing it consistently changing people's blood sugar, their A1C, weight loss. They have more energy. And I'm hearing from the carnivore and keto people who are like, what should I do? Try this. And in a week, they're seeing a difference in their blood sugar and how they feel. It's not about being right. It's about being closer to what works and the truth, and letting truths continue to reveal itself to us. It's really that, where I was promoting low carb for weight loss and for correcting insulin resistance for over 20 years. And then I added fasting workouts and intermittent fasting into that about the last 10 years of that, 22 years or so. Mm-hmm. And that's what wrecked me. That's what all of that combined, and it wrecked my stress hormones. And I was like, what's going on? Thyroid, energy, everything. But so it's not like people are saying, oh, well, he wasn't totally keto. He wasn't totally carnivore. He didn't do it right. I'm going 16 or 18 hours a day without eating, finishing that fast with a workout, and then eating, and then once a week doing a 24-hour fast. I think the fat adapted thing that they keep saying, which I kind of would question that term, I think it applied. I think I was using fat pretty effectively through that. My gluconeogenesis was definitely through the roof. Yeah, you would think after 16 or 18 hours without eating.
Yeah.
But
I want to say, with the workout thing you were saying, when I got back to the gym after increasing these carbs, I mean, a good 2 to 3 years of consistent gym workouts, 2 to 3 times a week. I found it so hard to break my PRs. Like once in a while, there would be one, when women get that testosterone peak around there, I might break a little, but I could not get past it anymore. I could not believe after 3 to 4 months away from the gym because of my digestive issues and everything going on, once I brought these carbs up, I did not get tired. I could have spent over an hour in there. I couldn't do that before. Yeah. And I was just blown away that I could still lift as much. And then I started breaking PRs again. And that in itself, I was like, all these people, they were right this whole time. Like, you need carbs to work out. But that was something, when you were saying that, I was like, oh my gosh, that was a big part too. And I couldn't grow muscle during carnivore. Right. There was a couple points initially with it that I was like, well, my biceps are growing, but my glutes, my hamstrings, my quads, I couldn't, they just weren't budging as fast as I wanted them to. And I'm not one of those that's like, overnight, I need to get like 2 years. I'm like, I should have more muscle than what I have right now. So that's kind of one of my next goals now as I do this. I'm still early on in this, but just to be more consistent in the gym again and see that muscle growth and see what happens. I do notice when I am consistent with that, my blood sugar in the morning is typically low 80s to mid 80s, which I'm very happy with. But and then the same with the food. You were saying vacation time, losing weight. I just got back from Massachusetts, almost a week there for my grandmother's funeral. So our food was very limited. We did have a B&B, but most of the day we were out and about. And I grew up in Massachusetts. I'm Portuguese. I want my Portuguese food.
Right.
So, in the funeral, like, food is limited. And the fact that I got to enjoy that without feeling guilty made me so happy. Especially, I love my grandmother. She's been a big part of my life. And to be surrounded by family and eating that stuff. And I'm just like, I mean, I didn't go hog wild. I kept it, like you said, keep it within reason. But having that food and then coming home and losing a pound or two, I don't know exactly because where I am in my cycle, but definitely down and less, like, not bloated, not
bloated.
Well, I was totally fine with the food, and it made me happy to be like, okay, I didn't feel bad. I didn't have any anxiety. I was just like, this is what I'm eating and it's okay. So yeah.
Do you find with clients well, I mean, you haven't done much of it with adding the carbs in, but someone who's been, say, keto, carnivore a long time, super low carb, well, their first concern is sometimes their blood sugar. Oh, it's going to go through the roof. My blood sugar's going to spike. I'm going to put on weight. That doesn't usually concern me as much as their initial feeling of putting something like this starchy or fiber into their stomach. And then they don't like that feeling because they don't have those little boogers in there. They don't have the little bugs in there that will break that down right away. And so it may take some time of easing into that food to develop the microbiota to break those down and digest them properly. But their initial response would be like, I can't digest these, right? It's that knee jerk, oh my gosh, I'm bloated, I can't digest these. Let's just say, like, how would you, as a coach, how would you approach that with someone who's coming back to them, hasn't been eating a lot of plants, they're starting to introduce some easier digested food? What kind of time frame would you give them? What would you expect them to feel, experience, and how would you help them manage that?
Yeah, so this is one of the reasons as soon as someone comes on with me, I immediately do a gut test because I know. And I used to do GI map. I don't do that as much unless it's a severe IBD issue. I have
Mhm.
a different company I work with that's much more affordable and it's half the price and you get a lot more markers and it's, what's the word I'm looking for? Metagenic? No, I can't think of the word, but it's a different form. It's not the PCR quantitative that GI map uses, but it's a different one
Okay.
that gives a lot more information and a lot more about the strains and butyrate and all those kind of things, the short chain fatty acids.
Mhm.
So what I typically will do for a case that you mentioned is get that gut test, but it does take a little longer. That's why I want to do it right away. It can take up to 4 weeks to get the results back.
Uh,
So I'm like,
gotcha.
okay, let's get that done now. There's always going to be something that's amiss in there. And if everything's good, which I haven't had anybody that everything was good, then it's like, great. Now you know the gut's not a root problem. But I'll do that. And then if they do experience bloating, a lot of times I'll supplement temporarily with sodium butyrate and give them that. And I know for myself, if I eat out somewhere and I can't control the foods that I'm consuming, such as what oil is it cooked in, I
Right.
will do sodium butyrate and that helps combat any digestive discomfort. That's one that I always have in my pantry. I always bring it when I'm traveling. And then as soon as it's done, it smells. It's horrible because they don't bleach it. I use Body Bio is the brand I use. I am affiliated with them because I like them. I only affiliate with products that I trust and use myself. Um, but yeah, I use them and yeah, I don't, I'm not using them all the time anymore because I don't need it. But if in those cases, like I
Right.
said, so
Right.
I would typically do something like that. And then the gut test, pending what comes back. If there's severe dysbiosis, overgrowth of bad bacteria, obviously we want to get rid of those. We want to do a short kill phase. There's various supplements I'll use depending on how severe it is. Some
Mhm.
people, minor, we can use your basic spices. You know, you can use oregano, clove, things like that. We want to get as much as we can from food and not have to pop pills all the time. That's my approach. But only if that's like a minor. And then I look at, okay, what is the diversity of your microbiome? Do you have enough of the bifidobacterium, which I've only had one client that had bifidobacterium in their gut. Everybody comes back with 0%. So that I've had so far. So we're like, okay, let's do what we need to do to grow that. Get some prebiotics, probiotics, get some HMO. There's an HMO I use. Maybe we look at the mucus lining. There's
Mhm.
so much that we can find now with it. And we just want to get that habitat to be incredibly healthy. If you're growing vegetables in your back garden, you're not going to let the soil become stale and dry, right? You're going to feed it, you're going to nourish it, you're going to put what you need in there to help it grow. And that's what I feel like would work for most people. And then obviously starting with the easily digestible vegetables and fruits, figuring out, having them do a food log. I ate these fruits today. This is how I felt for the day and the
Mhm.
next day too. Like not just
Right.
immediately after. And not starting out with cruciferous and cabbage and stuff like that much. You're gonna do that later.
Yeah, I can't. I don't even eat. I stopped eating raw salads and stuff like all the lettuces and heavy lettuces. Not ice, obviously like that romaine, but like some
Yeah.
of the other salads I'm eating. I used to eat these big salads, low carb. Stopped eating those because they just didn't feel good. Long before I started making other shifts and changes, it just set my stomach. And I'm like,
Yeah.
you know what? This isn't worth the trouble. I can. I'm gonna cook. If I'm gonna have a veggie, it's because I want to, and I'm gonna cook it So it cooks down to the point that I can actually easily digest it. And I don't feel, bloat after eating it. But it was like salads now and then, or it's like fermented. If it's fermented, that's different. Covered in vinegar and for a long time, who knows? But the raw thing, there's just some things, you don't force it too much, But when it comes to correcting your diet with coming back to things like getting that glucose in that your body needs so that you don't have to make it, that time period of like, let's onboard these foods and let your body adjust, have a little bit of patience, some trial and error. That sounds like a more, a much better way forward to really find out if do you really have a disagreement with those foods, or is it just because you haven't eaten them in so long, you don't have the biome to break it down. So I think that's a great, and those the great tips you got there. I mean, that's, I need to get some of that sodium because every once in a while you got to eat at a restaurant,
Yeah, no, exactly. Well, I do. Yeah. Jen Winkler is an affiliate code if that's okay. If anybody wants to use it, if you want to try it. Body Bio is a really legit brand. I really like them.
We'll include it in the show notes. Put that in there.
Cool. Yeah. But yeah, there was something you had just said. I blinked out. There was something I was going to respond to and I forgot. It's okay.
Oh, the veggies? No, like, no.
I think it was something on there. I don't remember.
Okay. Well, if it comes to you, but it's really been enlightening to see when one or two come out and say, hey, this is what I'm going through. And they were scared to come out. And it was really like coming out of the carb closet, really. And all of a sudden, it's like so many people came out and identified with this and looking for help. That should be that should give us a big message that we don't, in general, understand metabolism and how to correct insulin resistance well, or we don't have a full grasp of how all this works from a standardization. I'm not saying there aren't a few isolated people who do, but in general, we've been approaching this whole thing of insulin resistance and metabolic disease from a place of ignorance on some level of how the body actually works and what it responds to and what's actually causing the problem. And from what I've seen in literature, I want anyone who's listening to make sure I am not projecting this onto Jen or Jen's opinion. This is what I'm seeing, is that it's not the carbs and the insulin causing the insulin resistance. And it comes down to oxidative stress that causes the problem, a root cause, oxidative stress in the mitochondria. That can come from the gut, it can come from an endotoxin in the gut. I think a lot of it from what we've seen change in the US come from the seed oils and some of the other toxic ingredients in our food, which ultra processed food, which makes up about 60 to 70% of the average American diet. And so that oxidative stress in the mitochondria is what leads to the brain saying, hey, we need more energy. And so it releases these stress hormones, which then lead to basically a lot of overabundance of energy being released, which then leads to the insulin resistance. It's not the glucose in your food. It's what happens further upstream in the mitochondria that causes a backup of the glucose because it's not able to be metabolized. It's a blockage of the oxidation of glucose that causes glucose to be, it's a clog in the sink, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's not the carbs causing the problem, and they aren't, and I'm at the point where removing them, for me as a coach, removing them is not the root cause. It's not the solution. If it's something you manage while you're fixing things, that's one best. Yeah. I think that's debatable at depending on the person, but they didn't cause it. And if you're truly healed from whatever the oxidative stress that caused the problem, then you should be able to metabolize them properly. And I think that's where I was trying to get to. It took a long way to get there, but it's like, if you are truly, if your diet is working to heal you, you should be able to add those in. And because again, throughout human history, we've ingested all these foods without disease. And so if you're really cured,
metabolic flexibility. That's what we should all aim for, is being able to enjoy
Somehow that got lost.
variety. Yeah,
Somehow
it has.
the idea of metabolic flexibility got lost. Flexibility got lost.
It did. And I wanted to ask, I hope you don't mind me asking you a question. I'm very curious to see where you're okay. So all of this, I feel like we've covered a good amount in that aspect, but there's still that small camp of people that say they need to stay zero carb because if they have carbohydrates, they will binge. They have the sugar addiction, the food addiction mentality that is very popular. So like where would you go with that? Because I mean, I have my idea of that, but I'm curious what would you say to those people?
So your body's telling you something. Your body's telling you you need glucose, which you do, and it's tired of making it. It's tired of breaking down your tissue to make it. Now, if your first thought is you have associated in your mind that carbohydrates means Snickers bar or ice cream or French fries and potato chips, that's you. That's what's in your head. That was conditioning from you as a child. That's not your physiology.
Right.
That's your association up here. If you have truly been cured through your ketogenic carb diet, you should no longer have an addiction to those foods if there was ever an addiction. It's saying we're addicted to glucose is like saying we're addicted to oxygen, as far as I'm concerned, or water. Except that the benefit is we can actually make glucose in our body. We can't make oxygen or water. So it kind of deceptively tells, oh, we don't need it. It's like, no, you need it. You need it so bad that your body's willing to burn the furniture in order to make it. And people, oh, you don't use that much muscle. It's not the muscle I'm worried about. It's the stress hormones that lead to what I see in studies. The elevated stress hormones leads to an abundance of fat oxidation, which then causes the insulin resistance. And this is documented in article after article. So if eating broccoli or eating fruit makes you go after the junk food, that's not the food's fault. But having enough, it does tell you need more glucose. So have more of those foods around. Introducing 50 grams, 100 grams, maybe that's not enough. Go more.
Yeah.
You can't, your body will tell you when you've had enough. You will not indefinitely eat apples. You will hit satiety real quick. Even bananas, you will go at some point, even if you ate super sweet fruit, you would say, I don't want anything else sweet. I don't want any more sweet. I want salty now. I want fat. You have a shut off switch when you get enough.
Yeah.
Your body is really, really intuitive and smart. And so that would tell me this is exactly what your body wants. When you take that and it says, oh, I want more, listen, that's exactly what it wants to feed your body. You can turn down the stress and stop breaking down your tissue and have elevated stress hormones in order to make it. My long-winded answer, but it's...
No, it was good. Yeah. I mean, I feel the same way first of all, is where is it rooting from? Is it just a self-belief that's been given to you through social media? Because it's become very popular. As soon as someone hears that, oh, I like to eat a lot of carbs, so I must also have a sugar addiction. I have a client actually who came to me with that statement, and I asked her, I said, if I let you eat as many fruits as you want, do you feel you'd go overboard? She's like, oh, no, not with fruits, just with like cookies and pizza. And I had to explain to her the whole thing of, hey, well, cookies and pizza and all those junk, do they have carbohydrates? Absolutely. But they have a lot more fat as well. And I said,
maybe you have a fat addiction. Maybe that's why you're craving those foods. You have a fat addiction.
And like Bliss Point, the way they make the food.
Well, yeah. And I'm being facetious, but I'm saying, why are you blaming the carb in those foods?
Right.
When it's the bliss point. It's the combination of the two that's creating the response. And that's actually causing the problem with the lack of satiety.
Yes.
It's not
I think that was right there. What you said, it's not the single macro. And that's where earlier too, saying like, stop reducing foods to merely their macronutrients.
Mm-hmm.
It's much more than that, but it is the mixture of the two that make it taste so dang good. So if you're like, hey, I'm going to have some vegetables and some fruits. Now I have heard people say fruits will make them go overboard. Okay. Well, then stay away from the ones that make you go overboard. I don't know. I'm like,
Good
but
luck
there's
eating too much fruit. I want to see someone eat too much fruit because I want to know their perception of too much
yes.
fruit, what that means to them. Because they may say, oh, if I ate 150 grams, that's too much. No, no,
No,
that's
no.
please.
And also, are they measuring too? Because I had another friend where she was like, "Oh my gosh, I had so many cherries," and I said, "Go grab how much you had and measure it." And then she did, and she said, "Oh my gosh, I thought it was so much more than that." And I said, "No, that's nothing." And there's going to be an adaptation. Like her and I were wearing CGMs together as we were bringing the fruits in, and I did see significant spikes sometimes. But again, I haven't had this much fruit in God knows how long, right? So I was like, well, let's see the adaptation phase. And I didn't feel bad. And like you said, it came right back to baseline. And my blood work is showing that. Like my A1C is fine. My blood sugar fasting was 82 or something like that. Like it's good. So I'm not
Yeah.
getting those reactive hypoglycemic
Well, there's an
issues.
adaptive amount of insulin resistance that occurs when someone's on a very low carb diet to spare the glucose for the brain. And
Right.
so the muscles are going to turn off like, hey, we're not going to use as much. So the brain can get more of it because the brain needs it more than anything else.
Yeah.
And the brain's in control. The brain is first and foremost gets the energy and it needs the glucose. So if your body's been turning off its need or creating its physiological insulin resistance to spare glucose, and all of a sudden you introduce it, well, give it a break. Give
Yeah.
it a chance to adjust to that. Don't start judging it right out of the gate. Oh, I can't handle it. No, no, you've created an environment with your diet, with your no carb diet. That means your body doesn't know what to do with a normal amount of glucose. And so give it a few days of that kind of ingestion of it. And it will adapt. Or maybe it takes a week, but it
Yeah.
doesn't take long. And your body will say, oh, we're going to get this all the time now. We can relax a little bit. The brain's not going to starve. We can start using some of this and putting it in the muscle and using it for other tissues and other energy use and energy and thyroid hormone production. I mean, it will get used to that very quickly, and you won't have the issue. But to go from keto carnivore to suddenly 100 grams of carbs and oh no, my blood sugar went through the roof. What do you expect? You've
Yeah.
just changed the stimulus on a dime. It's just give it some time. You're not going to become diabetic by adding fruit to your diet. Just let things happen. Let your
Yeah.
body adapt. It's carb adaptation.
Yeah, exactly.
You can be
But
carb adapted.
yeah, when you go from vegan to
Yeah.
animal based or carnivore, whatever, like we know those people need an adaptation phase. We know we need to support their digestive enzymes and their stomach acid and things like
Yeah.
that to break down the protein. We know all that. So why would it be different going the opposite direction? And not that we're
Poses a
getting
great question. If it took someone a keto carnivore diet and we removed all meat, eggs, dairy, animal foods from your diet for 4 weeks, would you crave meat?
oh,
Would you
absolutely.
crave fat? So are
Yeah.
you fat addicted? Are you meat addicted? Is that what you are? You have an addiction to meat? You have an addiction to fat because you crave them when you don't have them?
Well, I know a friend of mine,
I mean,
her
I'm just asking a question.
yeah,
I'm sorry,
no,
I'll
it's
let you go.
pleasure. No, you're good. A friend of mine, there's different religions that you fast from different things for certain
Of
periods of
course.
time, specifically Lent, right? So a friend of mine, her faith, they fast from all animal products for the period of Lent the
Mhm.
whole time. And I remember I was carnivore at that time and I'm thinking, I could never do that. I could never. Now it's very interesting. Like I'm kind of wondering, what if I did that? I don't know if I'd feel good. I know it's supposed to be a sacrifice, but yeah, it's interesting. They do that, but then it's because on Easter Day they get to feast and they're craving that, right? It's like this interesting, anyways. But
Yeah,
um, yeah.
it's a
So
cycle. I mean,
yeah,
I think we are meant to. I mean, our bodies have been well designed to adapt to almost any environment and survive. That's why we're still here. There were in no point in history have we seen a purely vegan or purely carnivore
right.
society culture of any kind. They ate a mix. And if we look at most of the indigenous cultures that are still in place now, that are whether in the hills of Guinea or South America or on a Pacific island, or most of their diet is usually 60 to like 85% carbohydrate because
Hmm.
they're eating from the land and meat is scarce, you know what I mean? And you don't see carnivore. And the people mention, oh, what about the Inuits? Well, okay, they're in a place where they didn't have it. If you gave it to them, they'd eat it. But
Right.
it's part of the adaptation. But even then, they were robbing moleholes of tubers and eating the
Mm.
fermented grasses from the caribou they're killing. But to name an extreme example like that isn't really relevant. Most of human history, we've lived close to the equator. And again, looking at those groups who are eating 70 to 85%, even Okinawa, which is, first longevity with a 10-to-1 carb to protein ratio, eating a lot of sweet potatoes. And it's not, my point is that the ideal diet for you? Not necessarily. That's not my point. They're eating 60, 70, 85% carb and they don't have metabolic disease. And some of them, one of them, a Sasami tribe up in South America, they have the healthiest hearts of people. Over 40 have the least heart disease of any group studied in the world. And so there's no evidence that these whole foods cause metabolic disease. And
Right.
that's where I kind of I start to get a little angry, to be honest, when they start demonizing real food as causing disease. And there's no evidence of that. Yet we have people with letters after their name telling people this is the case. Who are
Yeah.
well educated is what I mean by those little letters.
I
They're
know what
well
you.
educated and they're standing on that platform. And I have a problem with that. I have a problem because there's no evidence. It's not historical or current evidence. All the evidence points to processed food and metabolic disease coming into our culture, both in the 20th century, very, very closely correlated in that first part of the 20th century.
So do you believe that ketogenic, or I should say the state of ketosis, do you believe ketones can actually heal somewhat, like temporarily? And then once the healing happened, would you still use that with people?
I I don't know that I would take on so someone who I would think of who needs ketones would be
Mhm.
someone with like a brain injury.
Mhm.
That's what I think of.
Okay.
I've been my focus since my mid 20s has been on how do we reverse metabolic disease? How do I prevent metabolic disease? It's all been metabolic disease for the last 30 plus years.
Yeah.
So a brain injury is not in my scope. And if
Yeah.
someone needs ketones, but I think you can supplement ketones these days.
Mhm.
You can drink ketones and put them in your system and use ketones
For
to
healing.
aid and bring energy and healing to, just if you really want ketones, I think you can supplement them. Now, I'm not an expert in treating brain injuries,
Right.
but when it comes to metabolic health, I don't really see the benefit at all because,
Yeah.
because to make ketones, you have to be in a very high fat, low carb state. And I see the high fat, low carb state as exacerbating the insulin resistance and creating the insulin resistance in the mitochondria, which then leads to the backup of the glucose.
Yeah.
So to me, your cure cannot irritate the original problem.
That
And
makes
yet,
sense.
meanwhile, we had the Kempner diet from 1939, 1940, what was an all rice diet, rice,
Mhm.
fruit, and fruit juice, which reversed, the hypertension originally, people with 180, 200 over 180, 150, reversed hypertension, 2/3 of the group. You saw them on put a smaller calorie diet, but still all rice, reversing obesity. Back to that diet, 2,000, 2,400 calories of rice, fruit juice, reversing diabetic symptoms with that coming off their insulin, reversing retinopathy symptoms for some people, and neuropathy, but really curing these people. I mean, the average weight loss of the original weight loss group was like, I think 106 pounds, 140 pounds. They all lost right around 45 kilos minimum, but some up to 65 kilos on rice, fruit juice. If it caused insulin
It would.
resistance, it wouldn't reverse it.
Yeah.
And that diet ran for 74 years out of Duke University.
Oh, I didn't
So
realize it was that long.
It ran till, well, 2000. It ran from 1939 to 2003 at Duke, and they moved the last 10 years off campus. But it originated at Duke University, and the whole program ran for 74 years and just stopped like 12 years ago. They didn't keep something going at Duke University that didn't worked for 2/3 of the people that came through there, about 18,000 people, from what I understand, that came through that program, and it worked for 2/3 of them. That's a pretty good record.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
ignoring information because it contradicts our current perspective that's not curiosity.
No. It's a very interesting spot to be in, I will be honest, because like, and I know you get this where it's like you have a certain amount of time. This is just what you've been doing. This is what you've been teaching. And then you're like, okay, I'm finally open-minded to having, I don't want to say debates, but like discussions, healthy discussions and open-mindedness, and like, okay, why does this work for you? Example, not that I would ever go vegan, but my son's jujitsu professor, she's a vegan. She's been vegan for many years. Hers is more of an ethical reason, the whole animal thing. And we've never debated that, but she has fought MMA and won a lot of medals.
There are some MMA people who are vegan. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And there's so many things that have happened leading up to this time where I'm like, I see that and I'm like, okay, how is she so fit and so strong and so healthy being a vegan? But then there's also my husband who has ulcerative colitis. And when we first went keto, he went into remission. It was great, but then stumping, and I know exactly what it is now, but it was a stressor. It was a stressful event that happened, but he was already under stress with the ketosis and stuff, that it was the worst flare of his life. He was down to 120 pounds and I almost lost. We thought he was going to die. He was going to the bathroom 15 to 20 times a day. We hired a functional, I don't specialize in colitis, so we hired a functional practitioner who does, and he's very popular in the space. Spent the money. I'm like, you're worth every dime, hun. And he is up to 160 pounds, eating the foods he wants, not one flare up for 2 years. And it's like, but it's whole food. We don't buy the junk food, right? He's eating his potatoes, rice, and in fact, he's never weighed 160 pounds in his life. And it's not unhealthy. It's like, I see dude, your biceps are growing. Like he's getting muscles, and it's incredible to see. Yeah. People are like, well, why didn't he do carnivore? And he did try it during his flare up and it made it worse for him.
Yeah. The guy's going to put weight on. Why would you limit glycogen?
Well, his digestion was a hot mess. He can't digest protein during that time. Some people do carnivore and they feel good with IBD. I can't explain it.
Well, no, plenty of people who have cleared up, ulcerative colitis and IBD with carnivore. Some feel like they can't come off of it, and I understand that, but I don't want to get in people's space, and they know what causes their gut issues, and that's again outside my scope. But if he can eat those foods and doesn't upset it, then he's going to be better off for having those foods in his body.
Right.
100%.
Yeah. His potato, he's loving his rice and potatoes. We're enjoying the meats. We're learning more about, what are the best meats to get. We always buy our half cow. This is our first time buying like a good pig versus like
a pastured pig.
Yeah, pastured pig. I don't know why I blanked on the word. This is perimenopause.
I've lived. I said we're in our 50s. I haven't been through it.
But it's just learning about the PUFAs and the chicken and the bacon. Like, this is why we don't eat bacon all the time anymore. So sparing the occasion, but not as often. So it's an interesting.
Not the highest quality meat. It really isn't the highest quality meat. I appreciate that. That is. I'm in a, like I said, we're in different places in our journey of learning, but we're both learning. And that's why I appreciate this conversation. And I'm certainly not trying to, I hope I didn't sound dogmatic, but again, I ran into my wall 3 years ago and I started making changes and asking questions and digging into stuff and listening to things. And that doesn't sound right. And I come back to it like, oh, that does sound right. So it's like, come back around and until I was ready to hear it, or ready to read it and ready to dig in deeper. And so it was a process. I didn't just, people may not have that understanding, but I didn't just flip to this
Right.
in 3 months. It's been 3 years, and in two solid years of a much higher carbohydrate diet than I'd eaten in many, many, many years. But I was in my 20s searching for this vegan for 3.5 years. And then I went, kind of played with low carb and a lot of intermittent fasting, like I said, for 20 and then 10 years. I mean, I've been through all of that and had to come back and say, I'm sorry, I was wrong. I'm in that place and said that publicly. I was wrong. This is not the best way to, in my opinion now, to approach metabolic disease was what I was referencing or teaching or coaching last time, in those last 20 years. And that's where I am. And it's, that's hard. That's a hard place to go. It's humbling. You got to get your ego out of the way, and you feel like it's like, oh, who, and there's that kind of like, how far forward or how fast do I want to come into this, or be open about this. And it's not, I've been trying to be careful not to address or attack people.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, people who I'm not in a conversation with, like when they start referencing other people, I don't want to talk about what so-and-so says or what so-and-so says or so says. Come to me with an issue and a concept and an open mind, and we can discuss the ideology, the concept, the practice. I have no desire to disparage people or leaders. It's a concept. If I have a behavior, I will address the behavior. If that person exhibiting that behavior, I'm still addressing the behavior, not the person. And so I don't want it to sound like I'm coming with, people have called it carnivore hate. And I'm not talking to people because I hate them. It's because people are struggling with what I struggled with. I'm trying to help them. It's not about hate. It's about, let's get this right. Let's bring some truth in and have some conversations, and let's all move forward rather than stay stuck in something that's not working for so many people.
Yeah. I love the way you worded that. That's a really good perspective, because I don't hate those people. Like the people that are still carnivore, I'm like, okay, if you like it, you can do it. It's up to you. I want to provide that space for, and once I fully grasp it all, provide that space to help people transition out of that and be able to enjoy, their fruits, their vegetables, and let them bring some healing. But yeah, I don't ever mean to be, so hopefully I didn't sound that way.
You didn't at all. I can definitely get a little edgy and spicy with people because they come with this kind of they come at me that way. And they come at me denying all these people that are talking to me about this, their experience. And when you start denying someone else's experience, like this is what they are seeing, it lines up with literature, what they're experiencing. And I've been through it personally, and I know how to help them understand it. And because it triggers them, but they're denying the experience of all these people, then I get a little edgy, because that's not okay.
Same thing. Like some of them will do the same. We've already talked about it. Like, this is my experience. This is your experience. But then they're denying it, saying that you didn't do carnivore correctly. You didn't fast enough. You didn't have enough fat. You didn't do enough sardine fast. You didn't do
fasted too much.
Yeah. Much, like you didn't eat enough calories. And someone mentioned, when I told them I've been increasing carbs at a few weeks ago, another prominent person, and he said, well, are you eating enough? And I said, I couldn't. Like I legit had my stomach could not digest fats. And coincidentally, so I go to Mayo Clinic for my epilepsy, and they offered like a genetic testing thing as a trial study thing. I was like, cool. I do not have the gene that digests high fat. That was one of the things they did. They tested, and that was fascinating to me. I said, that's why I've been having so many like issues when I'm high fat. Is I don't have the gene to break it down properly, and whatever it was. It actually said the gene similar to the Inuit tribe, or that the Inuit had. So I was like, okay, that makes sense. And now I can bump my calories so much higher having the fruits and the vegetables and stuff. And it's just, it has been a game changer for me. So
yeah, that's awesome. Still learning, still moving forward, and it makes
I'm willing
life
to
more
be
interesting.
wrong on this. That's the
I,
thing. Like,
I was too. And now I'm
yeah,
completely had too
it's
many,
a little bit more.
too many things to reinforce. Like,
Yeah.
oh, and like when the light bulbs keep going off and I keep seeing it patterns, after enough time, you see enough patterns fulfill themselves enough times, you're like, and so, and that's why I'm not projecting it. I'm walking with people like, come on. And when they're ready, come on, that's all right.
Yeah.
So I don't want to ever like tell somebody, you're like, you've got to do it this way, you're wrong. That's not, that's what I'm saying. But when the symptoms are there, let's address them. Let's not push them down. Let's not make people scared. Let's help people be seen and heard. And because they're just looking for help.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome.
100%.
I love what you're doing. Thank you so much for coming on. It does take some bravery to do that, especially in the space you're in. And I
Yeah.
appreciate it. Can you tell everybody where they can find more about you? And we'll put the links in the show notes, but like, how can they get a hold of you if they're looking for help with this or just anything that where people can see more of your posts? Give
Sure.
us the gamut.
Yeah. So I am on Instagram as well as YouTube, Jen Winkler Wellness, Jen with one N. So those are the two main places that I post. And then my website is jenwinkler.me. And yeah, I am shifting more towards YouTube long form content. So Instagram is kind of like hit or miss. Sometimes I find my spurts of like, I have a lot to talk about. And then there's like some silence. I'm not very consistent on there, I will be honest. But yeah, I'm shifting more towards the YouTube sphere and trying to just make a library of information for people to, things like this to help them learn and be more educated and have some civil dialogue. That's kind of where I'm at.
That's a good place to be. Your website, Jen?
Yeah, jenwinkler.me. And I do
Oh, you said
actually,
that. Okay. Yeah.
that's okay. Yeah. And the things that I offer one-on-one coaching. It's a little limited right now because of mom life and things going on. But I do one-on-one. I am working on a group coaching program for this exact scenario. People that are trying to bring carbs back in. That won't launch until 2026. And then I do offer, we didn't talk about this, but I am a cycle instructor that I help women learn how to track their cycle properly. So
Mm.
they're not just like, oh, I ovulate day 14. And, that kind of like we learn properly what your hormones are doing. You learn how to track your cycle. And that can give you more insight into what's going on with your hormones, where you don't have to test it every month or whatever. You can just learn and be like, oh, these are symptoms that my estrogen is low, or I have high estrogen, or progesterone's not functioning well, my ovulation, I'm not ovulating, all that kind of stuff. So I have been trained in that. And so I help women learn how to do that as well.
That's awesome. Great. Well, thanks again, Jen. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Yeah.
Be
Thank you for
talking
having
soon.
me. It's been great.
Yeah. Love it.